Wassinger, and I know that we have a new member or so. Would you like to introduce yourself, Representative?
Sure. My name is Nikki McDonald, and I represent parts of Overland Park and Olathe in the 49th District.
Welcome. We're glad you're here. Am I missing? I think the committee is the same, so I'm looking around trying to make sure I'm not leaving someone out. Our Vice Chair, Speaker Pro Tem, is in a leadership meeting and is not able to be here. And Patrick Penn is also excused. What we're going to do today is kind of discuss all the cybersecurity needs of the state of Kansas, and we're talking about high level. We're not going to get into details. We can do that at another time and perhaps in a closed discussion, because we don't want to publish everything that we're doing and that what we're not doing. And so off session, my vice chair and I met with the judiciary, the executive branch, and obviously our branch. And we got some really good ideas of where we should be going and what we should be concentrating on. And part of that resulted in two of the gentlemen that are here for this meeting who are going to help us understand a little bit of what we need to do, because the Homeland Security Cybersecurity Department said that they would come in and check all of the branches of government, just make sure that where we are, what we need, where we're going. And so that's where we're going to start, unless there are any questions ahead of time. I don't see a lot of questioning faces. So I believe we have Samuel Alva, Cybersecurity Advisor, Region 7, Homeland Security, Cyber and Infrastructure Security Agency, as well as John Bryant from the same department. Gentlemen, I'm sorry that we're a little bit late, and thank you for being with us. Are they on WebEx? Were they able to get on?
Yes, ma'am, we are able.
Okay, thanks for being here. Whoever starts the discussion, would you introduce yourself, say your name for the committee so we all are aware of what's going on?
Yes, ma'am. Good morning, Madam Chairwoman and distinguished committee members. I am John Bryant. I'm the Cybersecurity Advisor for CISA. I am located in Kansas City, Missouri. I have been with the organization for just over a year now, and I will be presenting just a high-level introduction of the agency and some of our services. I'll let Sam Alva, my colleague, introduce himself real quick.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Sam Alva. I am your cybersecurity advisor for the state of Kansas. I currently reside in Wichita, Kansas. I apologize for not being there in person. Weather and everything else has delayed us from traveling at this point in time. But I am a boots on the ground in your different areas. I think I talked to Representative Wassinger that I was recently in her area a few weeks ago doing assessment. So I'm here. I'm an asset for you in the state of Kansas. Thank you.
Okay, thank you both for being on. Can you give, I think this is directed to Sam, if you could give us an idea of what you specifically said that you do and that what we asked you to do for us?
Sure, ma'am.
Thank you.
John is gonna cover the overarching what CISA does. So I don't really want to steal his thunder. So John, if you could start with that and be able to answer Representative Wassinger's question. Thank you.
Sure. I'm going to go ahead and share some of my slides here. Are you able to see my slides?
Yes, thank you.
Mm-hmm. So as I mentioned, we are cybersecurity advisors for the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, best known as CISA. We are considered the nation's risk advisor. We are the newest agency set up within Homeland Security. We're set up created in 2018. So this is our operational priorities. We work to secure and reduce the risk of our cyber supply chain. We are lead for election security as well, and as you would can imagine, that is our lead, one of our highest priorities this year. And then we also work with organizations on those soft targets, and we are lead on and responsible for the federal cybersecurity on those civilian networks. And then we also work with critical infrastructure in reducing risk on their industrial control systems. We are set up in 10 regions. We are in Region 7. Our regional headquarters is in Kansas City, Missouri. Currently, we have 9 cybersecurity advisors covering the 4 states. We'll have 10 once we are fully staffed, where you have 1 vacant position. And then we have 10 protective security advisors and 1 election security advisor, which is a new position just recently created. As advisors, we have no regulatory authority. We are here to support all stakeholders, all of those state, local, tribal, and territorial governments, as well as private and public organizations that support the critical infrastructure. We want to work with organizations to educate them and collaborate with them on their challenges as well as their concerns, and help reduce the risk and mature their cybersecurity program, and continue to work with them as far as reducing their risk. As cybersecurity advisors, we obviously focus on the IT and operational technology networks, while the protective security advisors, they work on emergency preparedness and physical security and business continuity. When we meet with organizations, we encourage all organizations to sign up for this service, cyber hygiene scanning. This is one of our no-cost services that everyone is qualified for just by meeting with us. And what this does is this captures all of those devices that are available to the public internet, and we get those public network IP addresses and provide them to our cybersecurity division. They then configure their program to scan those devices for any vulnerabilities, and they receive a weekly report on every Monday. That way, those organizations can then mitigate or patch those vulnerabilities to reduce their risk for any cyber attacks. We also provide awareness system where individuals can sign up for bulletins, alerts, current activity reports, and analysis reports. They can sign up for those programs through our website by clicking on the broadcast button at the bottom of our webpage. They can also report a cyber issue or incident from our homepage as well. They can report vulnerabilities, suspected malware, or a cyber attack through that program. We provide no-cost training to all of the organizations and individuals. You can see through the NICS website, you can sign up for over 6,000 courses as well. This particular website has an application that's good for students and individuals that may be interested in a cybersecurity position. It will help them identify the position that they would most enjoy or be interested in. Our FedVTE platform has over 800 hours of virtual self-paced online learning. We also have training on incident response and industrial control systems, as well through a contract with FEMA. The Texas A&M Engineering Extension has a program for cyber readiness, their cyber readiness center, where individuals can sign up for webinars and additional training. And if organizations have the space and the students at no cost, the TEACS program will send an individual on site to conduct training. Through our website, we have free tools and other resources out there. The tools and utilities can be downloaded by the IT staffs and cybersecurity staffs with confidence, knowing that these tools have been vetted by CISA and are good and secure. As well, we have our own cybersecurity evaluation tool out there, the CSET tool, which has all of our assessments and a large resource library for references. You can also sign up for the known exploited vulnerabilities catalog. And what that catalog is that's a catalog that we update on a daily, sometimes hourly basis based on vulnerabilities that are known to be targets by hackers and bad actors, ransomware groups. We promote memberships for the information sharing and analysis centers. There are multiple centers out there that focus specifically on sectors, but then the MS-ISAC, that is a contracted partner of CISA's. They provide many no-cost and low-cost services and resources that complement our services. We also have a regional representative from MS-ISAC that, if interested, could be made available to provide a virtual presentation to introduce you to some more of their information and resources. This is just a quick list, somewhat dated list of their no-cost and low-cost services. Excuse me. I know that this is dated. There is one current and one new service that is in pilot right now, and that would be an email protection service. And along the lines of information sharing, I wanted to just share this with the group. This is some bills that were put forth down in Texas last year. I received this from the Texas Education Agency, CISO, and this just gives you an idea of some of what they are looking to do. These links are active and will be made available to you once we provide this presentation, so you can take a look at those. Again, that was just a real quick high level view of the agency and our no cost services and resources. And I will now turn it over to Sam Alva, who will continue on with the presentation.
Before we get to that, we have a question from Representative Penn. He raised his hand, I believe.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. How you doing, Mr. John? Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fantastic. Hey, quick couple of questions. Number one, do you all provide services in your portfolio like audits of network vulnerabilities as well? I may have missed it when you said that.
Yes, that is one of our services that organizations can sign up for. It's our risk and vulnerability assessment. That one is a 2-week assessment that is conducted by our cybersecurity division. And that is 1 week remote for them, and then they'll come on site for 1 week and look at your network as well. I did not cover all of our services or resources. I am more than happy to meet with individuals at another time to go through the complete list. But yes, we do.
Absolutely, yeah, okay. And then Madam Chair, if I may, the other question, well, I'd like to see the pricing for that if it's not given as a complimentary service. But also, how does it work down to the end user? Because a lot of the testing, the pen testing, penetration testing and everything goes down with the network layer, but not necessarily to the end user. What do you all have by way of end users to make sure that they are not having vulnerabilities as well?
We do not go down to the individual level. What we do is we look at the applications, your primary applications that are accessible to the public, and we look at those edge devices because that's where we want to stop those bad actors. Now we used to have a phishing program where they would you know imitate like a phishing email to certain users, but they no longer do that either. What they will do though is they do have as part of the RVA a program where they test the the security products that are security controls that are on the laptops or the individual devices that are provided, to the group. Now, as far as cost, all of our services are no cost. These are all services that are paid through tax dollars, and they are at no cost to the organization.
Thank you for that. And Madam Chair, if I can ask one final question, and maybe Mr. John or maybe the next presenter can answer it. When we're talking about getting into the network here at the legislature and having that information sharing going on, does that become that information, that data, does it become proprietary of your servers, or is there a firewall or some type of protection that we retain that? How does that work necessarily?
Um, I'm not sure I quite understand it, but all of this information is any of the information that's gathered is protected
Right.
by law. We are not authorized to share it. It's protected from sunshine laws, subpoenas, etc. But it is provided to the organization's POC who's been designated to receive that information. And then from there, that POC and the organization can share it however they wish.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. Very good.
Yep.
Any other questions? I think we'll move on to Sam Alva. Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Sam, are you there?
He went to get some coffee, I think.
Maybe.
But I think it's important to point out that all of, like he said, all of this is already paid for by your tax dollars. So when we asked, they said all they need is to have us request that they come in and check everything. And we requested, as a matter of fact, requested for all branches. We've met, yes.
Sorry, I was trying to unmute. I went into
No,
sharing mode and didn't see the, we're not used to Zoom, or not Zoom, WebEx, so I was trying to find, sorry, I apologize.
No, you're fine. Thank you. Go ahead.
So to piggyback on John's high level explanation on what CISA provides, so to kind of give you of the where we are and where we need to be for the entire state, we start with our CPGs. The CPGs were developed from the NIST standards 853. It's kind of the foundation of cybersecurity. And what it is that the CPGs was developed and it's been updated. It's a baseline assessment for your cybersecurity maturity levels, and it's based off the identify, protect, detect, and recover. And the great thing about this is that it is very holistic. It not only covers your IT, but also your OT side. Everybody's familiar with your IT or your enterprise level, your business operations, but then now we have our OT. And our OT is operational technology, which is any device or component that interacts with the physical environment. Perfect example, our water and wastewater, our energy, our communications, all of those areas are part of the OT environment. So our objective is to align our CPGs with the Kansas strategic objectives going forward. And that's kind of how we work, because we are not going to just offer a training or a resource or a widget and not truly identify, again, the first step, the assets. And that's what is most important. So when you look at the entire process, we do sit down and we meet with those POCs or asset owners, and we cover the CPGs. And this is what it covers. Asset management is very important because we cannot protect what we don't know. And again, that is the hardest part when we go in and we try to identify all of the assets that have an IP address, and I'm not going to get into detail, but that's where we come in as risk mitigation experts. We come in and we assist those stakeholders. We've already have done a lot with the state of Kansas. We've done the legislative. We've worked with the Department of Revenue. We also have done some work with KDHE. So we're slowly but surely aligning ourselves with the state, which is very, very effective in this collaboration. So going forward, ma'am, like you said, what's our roadmap? And our roadmap, if this is what we want to achieve, is to, I think having all of the state under one roof, because here's the thing is, if I asked one person in the room, what's important to you, each person is going to have a different asset that's important. And it's our job to identify the most critical asset and then identify what's protecting that asset. Again, the second, those controls. And then, here's the unfortunate piece. People are going to click stuff. We understand that. So what do we have in place to detect that? What controls do we have in place? It could be training, it could be, an IDS, an intrusion detection system, which can identify malicious behavior from a logical aspect from coming in. And then what's the response? The incident response plan is very, very important, because a lot of times when we go in and we talk to a stakeholder like yourself and we say, okay, it's not if, it's when you get hit, and how bad are you going to get, and how quickly can we recover? But that response is very important, because who are we going to contact? A lot of times we'll go in and we'll develop an RIP, incident response plan, and then they get hit with the ransomware. Then we go in and we say, okay, you know what? Let's look at your incident response plan. And unfortunately, that was encrypted as well. So again, we come in, we utilize best practices, lessons learned to help not just yourselves, but across the state of Kansas, and making sure that we build in resiliency utilizing our CPGs and other assessments that we offer, because we offer a slew of other assessments, to include our ransom readiness assessment. We have a CIS, which is, again, it's for more mature environments. We have a CRR, and we have an EDM, because we realize that our external dependency management, our third-party vendors, a lot of the times they're a huge vulnerability in our environments, because what cybersecurity practices are they using? And those are some of the things that we cover with the stakeholders like yourselves when we meet with. And there's a great thing about it is that utilizing the CPGs, it allows us to get a baseline of the entire state, because we're using one system to evaluate each stakeholder. So that's kind of in a nutshell. We could go into more in depth, but like you said, it would, that's when we start identifying threats and vulnerabilities and things like that. But again, if we're looking at the 17 critical cybersecurity measures that the state wants us, we're already doing a lot of them. We're working with local universities, KU, Wichita State. Like I said, we're putting on training right now for the water and wastewater with KDHE. And again, we're already working with certain departments already. And here's the greatest thing is that the state in different departments are doing a lot of great things. And I feel a lot of times it's that collaboration. We need to have more communication between the departments, because people are doing a lot of great things in the state, and that needs to be shared across. That's all I have. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions? Representative Wagner.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mr. Alva, the question that has happened in the state of Kansas in the last 6 months has been a cybersecurity breach of the judicial branch. Is there any insight or any comments that you would make on that, as far as what we could do perhaps to prevent that from happening to other departments, or just some commentary on that particular data breach?
Sir, we don't know a lot of what has occurred in that particular breach. But what we do know is that, we do have plans to go in and identify. I mean, there are some things that we do know as far as what has occurred. And I think but again, when I bring up those third-party vendors, we need to have more oversight and supervision of how they operate in their environments. And I think that will help alleviate across the board. When we look at here's the thing. We can't control the threats. We can control the vulnerabilities. And the vulnerabilities are controls or controls that we don't have protecting those particular assets. And we don't know what we don't know. And that's the reason why, again, if we could go in and do these assessments in each of the organizations, we're going to be able to identify those vulnerabilities and hopefully implement those controls. Again, we're working with, I mean, you could talk to some of the people that we've already working with, but you know, we're not here to sell widgets. We're here to provide those particular countermeasures. You know, people and your processes are going to reduce your risk the most, and that's what we concentrate on, is those people and processes.
If I can, in your opinion, I mean, is what happened to the judicial branch, is that plausible to happen to any other branch here in the state of Kansas as far as the government? Or is there anything that would prevent it?
Yes, it is. You know, we've been told from our leadership, it's not if, it's when you get hit. And that's the reason why it's important that we come in and we do these assessments to identify those critical assets that are important, that allows you to continue business. And once we identify those, then we could start implementing those control measures and advise you on how we could fix those vulnerabilities and those gaps. So, you know, we've never had this relationship before. And we want to continue to build that relationship. Again, you know, we are a no-cost service to you. Unfortunately, you know, there's only a few of us right now within the state, and we're hopefully to bring on more personnel. And there's been talks about maybe other ways that we could expand our resource capabilities to add more flexibility and offer more services to the state. But yes, unfortunately, we are. I mean, every single day the state is being hit. We work closely with the FBI. I mean, just yesterday we had, you know, the dark web. We got notification that another city information was found on the dark web. So again, that's why a lot of the service that we offer, you know, your biggest vulnerability is, one, your phishing, you know, your individuals, training your individuals. The second one is, you know, identifying those external web facing applications that are not properly patched or managed. So, so yes, unfortunately, the threat is real.
Okay, are there any other questions? What I was starting to say is when we recessed in last session, the vice chair and I kept meeting and talking about what needed to be done. We needed to take care of the legislature and their cyber security vulnerabilities. But as we visited, we realized we needed to include all branches of government. So we had been already talking to the governor's office, to Jeff Maxson, and I went over prior to session and had a meeting with the Chief Justice. So we have a very unique situation. We're very vulnerable. I had a cybersecurity expert tell us that by 2030, someone will be hacked every 2 minutes. So we have to be proactive as best as we can, even though we're reacting to what's happened with the judiciary. And what really is, I'm deeply grateful that all three branches have come together and we're trying to find better solutions. And this is the first step. We set up a meeting but didn't realize we could get extra help from the federal government. So we believe this is our first step, and we'll be hearing from our IT director after that. But we also have been looking at a third party. Once they come in, having a third party come in and try to pull all this together. Because right now, even though we're three branches of government, it doesn't mean that we can't buy licenses to a word processing software. It doesn't mean we can't share licensing for the different things that all over the state are using. And you know, it gives you a headache to think of, you know, like 58 agencies under the executive branch, each of which is either, thankfully some are using the state, the executive branch's information technology, but others have their own IT branches. And what we're hoping to do is try to get it all together so that we can save money for the people of Kansas, but also just be far more efficient and not have 15 different licenses for Microsoft 365. Buying things in bulk most of the time is very cost effective. And from the examples that we've looked at throughout other states, when they've done this, they've saved thousands and thousands of dollars. So I think that was one of the directions we were trying to push our committee, so that we knew that we weren't just talking about our house itself. But we have the support of the Speaker, we have the support of the Senate President, the Chief Justice, and after speaking to Will Carpenter, we have the support of the Governor's office and the executive branch. So this is really, it's a very exciting time in that we can all get together and play in the same sandbox, but we are aware that we have to have separate silos. Judiciary doesn't want us to be able to get into their information. We don't want to get into their information. And the executive branch doesn't want us to get into theirs, and we don't want them getting into ours. But we need to have someone oversee what all is going on, is what we've kind of come to a conclusion. So we are drafting a bill, and we'll make sure that we get all of that to all of you as we get closer to a final draft. But we realized once judiciary got hacked, we were a day late and a dollar short. So we need to be putting our priorities in order, and this is a huge priority because you think about it, if they hacked the legislature, we wouldn't have any computers to use. Well, how are we going to get work done? And not only do they want ransom in some cases, but they want chaos. They want you to be shut down. They want you to not know what you're doing. So this has been very eye-opening about all of the threats and what we need to do for the entire state of Kansas. And hopefully beyond the 3 branches, we will be able to help counties, cities do their own and work towards more security, because judiciary, as a matter of fact, has people signing in from all over the state. So you just never know who's going to come in the back door. Also, once you are hacked and you are shut down, we were told that they didn't just that moment say, I'm going to hack the state of Kansas judiciary. They were in their system well over almost 300, well, just under a year, poking every day, looking for weaknesses every single day. So when you say, oh, I have backups of everything, how long do you keep your backups? Do you back up weekly, monthly? If they've been in there a year, your backup is infected as well. So there are so many things that we need to get a handle on and know how we can help local governments as well as all the people that use the IT systems within the state. Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate your being on WebEx for us. Is there any question for either gentleman? Representative Robinson.
See, the PowerPoint, is that going to be made available to us as a committee or to the House members at all?
Phyllis, did you get the PowerPoint already from them, or are they going to send it? Okay.
I can send that, ma'am. I'll send it. I can send it to you if you'd like, or
That's fine. And then I can have the committee assistant send it to the committee. And that way she has it in her database, so we've got it if anyone needs it any other time. Representative Riley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the traditional thing for this committee has been that instead of emailing that out to the committee, that it's been dropped into our folder, and then we have access, so we don't have that extra amount of stuff coming out to all our emails. It's just put into our committee folder.
Yes. It'll be in the S drive for legislative modernization, which, not to get off topic, if you need something typed and you don't want it just put in the S drive, you can print it yourself, or you can call Phyllis, our new committee assistant. She can make sure that she can print it for you so that you can make notes on it if that's how you feel better. Right now, I said, don't print a bunch of stuff out. Let's see who needs it. If you want it, and there's no stones thrown here. Some people are paper people, some people are not. We have newspaper man. I understand that. So right now, we're just going to put everything in the S drive, correct? I got a thumbs up. So if you have any problems, contact me or Phyllis, and we will make sure that we can get it given to you some other way. Okay? Any other questions? Representative Turner.
Thank you. I just was curious, in your comments, and maybe it was just a word selection, you had said that we're unique and we're very vulnerable. It seems like, well, I mean, I don't know why we're unique. I was curious of that, because it seems like we're like every other
We are.
vulnerable business and government. Okay.
Yes, we are.
All right, thank you.
I'm sorry I used an incorrect word. Representative Robinson.
The other part of my, thank you. The other part of my thinking was if,
Can you move your microphone really close? 'Cause
okay,
you've
so
got a
if,
very
some,
quiet
the other
voice.
part of some of the thinking that I was trying to communicate was if you don't have a lot of background in cybersecurity, will this committee be allowing more training in this whole arena so that we have the skill set to interpret and then try to decode back out these kind of complex platforms of information, if that makes any sense?
Yes, it does. It makes perfect sense. Yes, I think when Alan, our IT director, comes up, we can talk about that as well. I know that he's tried, we'll talk to you also, Bob, in a minute, but I believe they have been training staff. But we need to extend it to everyone in the legislatures and their staff. We need to be taking it, whether it's online, making sure that we do it. Also, I'll tell you, one of the things that I had when I was on a juvenile correction and corrections board is they had a glossary of everything, every acronym they had. So when you were in a meeting, you could just go quick, okay, yeah, that's what it is. So I've asked Phyllis to start jotting down anything that just sounds like Greek. And hopefully we can do that, and then let me know what else you'd like to have done, and we can try to facilitate that. Okay. Are we done? Questions? Thank you, gentlemen. We will be in touch, and we look forward to working with you.
Excellent. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
I
ma'am.
appreciate you.
Thanks.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Okay, we'll move on now. They were supposed to talk about NIST standards. Maybe we could have Bob talk about those in more detail. So now we have our IT director, Alan Weiss, and then also he's brought along Bob Murphy, who's his security
Yeah, he's our security engineer.
So write that one down. All right, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Madam Chair Wassinger. My name is Alan Wise. I am the Chief Information Technology Officer for the legislative branch of government. There are three Chief IT Officer positions defined in the state of Kansas in statute. And as I said, I'm in the position for the legislative branch. So when I got appointed to the position, this was back in 2019, I started, after about a year, I decided we needed a renewed focus in security of our IT systems. So in 2021, I defined two new positions in our office after reviewing the organization, and that is the Information Technology Systems Architect and the Information Technology Security Engineer. So I promoted Donnie Hinton into the architect position in 2021. Donnie's here with us today. And then in March of this year, I hired Bob Murphy as our security engineer. And since he came on in April, he's been reviewing the policies and statutes of the state as it pertains to the legislature, and then also focusing our staff on making sure all of our systems are updated, that we're getting the proper security tools in place, and making sure that we're in line with best practices of the industry. So that is, we've been focused on that for almost the past year now, trying to get everything enhanced in security in our system. So, Madam Chair, with your permission, I'll have Bob come up. He's got a presentation that he can go over all of our efforts that we've been doing in the legislature.
Absolutely, that'll be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
But stick around, I have questions for you as well. Thanks. Thank you. Welcome to committee.
Good morning, Madam Chair, committee members. Thank you for having me today. I'm Bob Murphy. I am the IT security engineer. A little bit of background. I spent 8 years in the Army doing communications and information security. I've got a bachelor's degree in cybersecurity and a master's degree in cybercrime and digital investigations. We're going to go ahead and discuss the legislative cybersecurity, what we're working on, what we've been working on, and give you, a brief overview of that and go into a little more detail on the NIST standards. Kind of going into that, we're going to cover the NIST standards, the Center for Internet Security, talk about what we're doing with CISA, and talk about the Kansas Information Technology Executive Council and what their role is, and how we're building policies, we're building procedures and everything like that. And we're also going to look at what's happening now in the legislature as far as how we are changing our IT infrastructure, working with our IT security, and updating all the policies. So NIST is the National Institute of Standards and Technology. It's actually been around since 1901, and it currently creates cybersecurity frameworks for critical infrastructure, including state, local, and territorial governments and things like that, in accordance with the Cybersecurity Enhancement Act of 2014. The frameworks that they create are prioritized, flexible, repeatable, performance-based, and cost-effective. Essentially, you can get these frameworks for free, and to implement them, you really don't need any capital. It's all policy and procedure-based. And they focus on utilizing business drivers to guide cybersecurity activities. So for us in the legislature, we look at what you guys need to do as far as legislating, what KLRD needs to do as far as research, what the revisers are looking at doing, and we kind of build our policies and procedures in collaboration with all those different departments and the NIST framework on how that's going to affect everyone. So when we look at, Sam briefly mentioned the framework core functions. I'll go into a little bit more detail on those. Identify is essentially where we develop an organizational understanding to manage cybersecurity risks to systems, people, assets, data, and capabilities. This goes with your asset management, looking at versions of different software, making sure everything is patched. Protecting is the ability to limit or contain the impact of potential cybersecurity events. Detecting is being able to find them. Responding is what we're going to do when they happen. And recovering, of course, is your backup and disaster recovery processes, making sure we can get you guys back working as quickly as humanly possible. So what we did, we're using the NIST cybersecurity framework maturity levels. Those cover policy maturity and practice maturity. Policy maturity is how well do our policies, procedures, and standards satisfy NIST cybersecurity framework requirements. And practice maturity is how well do our operational practices satisfy these same NIST cybersecurity framework requirements, regardless of the policies and standards that are in place. You've got 5 maturity levels, 1 through 5, with 1 being the least mature and 5 being the most mature. In July of 2023, myself and Mr. Hinton conducted an assessment, a self-assessment, and our policy average was a 1.41 out of 5, and our practice average was a 1.81 out of 5. So, there's a lot of room for growth and improvement, and again, that's what we're working on policy and procedure-wise to bring those numbers up. Within the next, hopefully, year and a half, we should be up to about a 3, probably less time than that. So when we go into NIST, and we're talking about our policies and procedures, we're also using the Center for Internet Security, which is a US 501 nonprofit formed in October of 2000. They help businesses, governments, and others protect themselves from pervasive cyber threats. As Sam mentioned again, that's the home to the Multi-State Information Sharing and Analysis Center, which we are a part of in the legislature. We get threat alerts from them on a daily basis, look at common vulnerabilities and exploits and everything like that. We get those sent out, and we analyze them, and we act accordingly depending on what action needs to be taken. They also have free services for the state, local, tribal, and territorial governments. So we are taking advantage of those free services. Those include build kits, so we can build secure images for everyone's laptops, and also assessment tools, which allow us to assess the images on the laptops and in accordance with their benchmarks. They have about 20 benchmarks. So their controls, benchmarks, and hardened images are globally recognized, community-driven, and best practices for securing IT systems and data. So those are worked on essentially by professionals, IT professionals all around the world. People who have been doing it for 20, 30 years. When people recognize vulnerabilities and ways to fix them, they'll submit them to CIS. It's a big collaborative effort, essentially, between industry professionals, government professionals, and all these different departments to make sure that everyone can be as secure as possible. Now, I bring them up in relation to NIST because essentially what we're using CIS for, and it's a building process. We're mapping the CIS benchmarks onto the NIST framework when we're building I'm mapping the CIS benchmarks onto the NIST framework when building the policies and procedures. So we're not just using a single framework, as Sam mentioned, NIST is essentially the baseline framework that's accepted. So we're taking these CIS benchmarks and mapping them on top of that NIST framework to kind of create a more secure environment. And that leads into, treading a little familiar ground here that Sam and John covered. CISA, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Agency, was established in 2018 under DHS. They are focused on collaboration and partnership, and they offer free services to state, local, tribal, and territorial governments. So one of the services, some of the services that we have currently already taken advantage of are the .gov top-level domain. So we have obtained the ks.legislature.gov domain, and we do use their vulnerability scanning services. So those occur weekly unless it detects a certain number of vulnerabilities, and then those occur as needed. So if we were at a high risk, they would scan more often, up to daily. We also did a CPG assessment, which Sam mentioned. We did that December 14th. A ransomware risk assessment also occurred December 14th of last year. And we're in talks to do some of the other services when he's talking about some of the vulnerability things, incident response services. And we're also going to build some custom tabletop exercises specifically for the legislature. A tabletop exercise is essentially when we go and we act as if we've been attacked, and we do our response and recovery and everything around that. So we'll crash a test system, essentially, like we'll crash KLIS on a test system, and then we'll see how quickly we can recover from an attack. So our last weekly scan we got this Monday. That's from those free cyber hygiene services. We had 15 identified identified 15 vulnerabilities on 6 vulnerable hosts out of the 259 external-facing IP addresses we provided to CISA. This is actually down 3, so that means essentially we remediated 3 vulnerabilities within the past week. Now, some of these vulnerabilities are unavoidable, so they consider a vulnerability if you remember a username and password on the website, or if you remember a search on the website. That's technically considered a vulnerability because it's a way in. But those are pieces of website functionality that are gonna stay there. So we're never gonna be at 0 because of things like that. But anything that we can mitigate, we mitigate on a weekly basis. As far as our CPGs go, Sam kind of covered this, so I won't go over everything, but we did conduct that assessment in conjunction with CISA. Sam and John were actually here on December 14th. And we did do the ransomware risk assessment on the same day. This is kind of designed to assist in understanding our current state of readiness to address ransomware threats and give us a path forward for improvement. Now, we've got specific results available, but those we're gonna stick high level for this. But if anybody has any questions or would like those, we can arrange to get that. Now, the The final piece of how we're building policies and procedures and building our roadmap is going to be with the Kansas Information Technology Executive Council, established in 1998 by KSA 75-7202. It's a 17-member council chaired by the 3 branch CETOs, as Mr. Weiss mentioned. Alan Weiss is currently the chair. I believe they rotate every 2 years. Every year, excuse me. Membership includes 4 legislators currently: Senator Clays, Senator Pittman, Representative Bergquist, and Representative Curtis. So what they do is they provide direction and coordination for the application of Kansas IT resources, responsible for adapting resource policies, architecture, data management standards, and strategic IT planning for the state of Kansas. And their cybersecurity specific policies are covered in 7230, 7300, and 7230 Alpha. We do have a summary document prepared if anybody would like that sent out. I believe Representative Wassinger has seen it. It summarizes all 3 of those policies, but I can get that sent out to everyone. So essentially, when I talked about that policy process and procedure, what I'm doing is I'm taking the NIST framework and the CIS benchmarks, then looking at recommendations from CISA and our ITEC standards, and I'm essentially layering them all together to create what policies and procedures we're using here at the legislature. Of course, we want to keep in line with what Kansas does, but we also, the standards for Kansas, obviously. But we also want to look at industry best practices and procedures. So when I'm creating these cybersecurity policies and procedures, those are the kind of things we're looking for or considering. And I think it's important to note that it kind of touched on briefly earlier. It's good to have the best technology. Buying new technology is a good thing, but what it comes down to when you really want to be safe is your policies and procedures. You could have the newest computer, and if there's an exploitable vulnerability and or people are clicking on phishing emails, you're going to get attacked anyway. And I think another thing important to note, kind of when we're on this, is it's not if, it's when it's going to happen. Essentially, my job is just to make sure that when it does happen, we can recover as quickly as possible, and we have a layered approach to that defense in depth. So when they do get in, they only get segments of information as opposed to being able to do everything at once. So that's what we're working towards, because like I said, it is going to happen. It's much easier to play offense than defense. Just kind of wanted to make that point, and especially with the policies and procedures, and then if it's not if, it's when. So what we're doing now, as you're aware, for infrastructure, we are modernizing. The KLIS modernization project is in full swing. That's our internal application that handles all the bills and things like that. We're in the middle of an upgrade to Microsoft 365 with government licensing. The government licensing essentially means that all of our data is stored in a data center with the United States, and anybody who has access to the data is a United States citizen who has passed a background check. We're also migrating all of our user handling to Enter ID, which is another cloud-based service. Working on migrating our emails to Exchange Online, and working on rolling out Microsoft Teams in hopes that will eventually replace Spark as our default collaboration and messaging app. It's really got a lot of great functionality. When you talk about your S-Drive committee folders, you'll actually be able to create teams for the committees and upload everything directly to Teams. And it's more secure because it requires sign-on, unlike the S-Drive folders. So those are just things we're in the process of looking at and testing and making sure we can get that functionality to everybody while keeping everything more secure. We're upgrading our connections in the State House Secure Data Center from 1 gigabit per second to 10 gigabit per second. We're also looking at upgrading our DNS services. This would involve us taking over our domain management when we're talking about ks.legislature.gov. And we're looking at ks.leg.gov also for the internal site. So we take over management of that. That would allow us to also manage our own certificates, which are very important for security. We'd also be able to see a lot more of the telemetry, who's visiting the site, what's going on the site, things like that. And then we are testing the ks.legislature.gov website address change from OregonNet. We've had that address parked for a little while, but we didn't really want to make that change before this session because it's a big change, and we kind of wanted to take some time to roll that out. So, and we can also, for all the different departments and everything like that, They can also contact CISA for those .gov domain services, and we can get off those .net and .orgs. It's a more secure, it automatically goes to HTTPS, which is your secure web protocol, as opposed to standard HTTP when someone's browsing on that site. So as far as security updates, we have begun using a managed detection and response service. This gives us 24/7 security incident monitoring. Incident response assistance is available if we do not handle that ourselves. That is available. We've got proactive threat hunting, and going into the training piece, we've got managed security and awareness training that's going to be occurring bi-weekly via email. Those are random emails that are going to be sent out. Again, that's in the beta, so we're currently going to test that out. And there's also going to be phishing campaign training. So essentially what that means is that phishing emails are going to be sent out, and whoever clicks on it is going to get a training on why that was a email they shouldn't have clicked on. So, you know, kind of going back to one of the slides that John and Sam were showing, and Representative Robinson's question about training, the Fed VTE, which is the virtual training environment, is free for everyone, and I can send out links if need be. And they've got a lot of really great training on there as far as cybersecurity is concerned. I shouldn't say free to everyone who works for the state government. So a lot of that, you know, of course, that's self-driven, so you can sign up for a lot of courses through there. And that's going to cover your basics. And if you really want to dig down into terms, there's a site called Udemy, which will have more advanced cybersecurity courses and walk you through terms and everything like that. Now, I also do have a glossary built of common terms that we use, so I can send out a copy of that if anybody would like that as well. So we have also just started using a security operations center. Essentially, that gives us we've got a 6-person team that's dedicated just to the Kansas legislature. So when there are incidents or when things happen, when they detect a strange login from a place that a login shouldn't have happened at, or at a time where it shouldn't have occurred, somebody's going to alert us immediately. And again, that's 24/7. They've got a number of contacts within the legislature to call. In the different departments as well, and they will not stop calling until they get a hold of someone. So it's not going to be a call once, so no, somebody didn't answer the phone. They'll keep calling and let us know. They're also going to help keep us up to date on different threats. And once we get the client installed on the computers and they start to the individuals start to learn our environment, they'll start to send us specific vulnerabilities because they'll be able to see this computer has this piece of software, that software has this known vulnerability, you need to update on 15 computers. That's also going to give us a compliance score. So we're going to have all the different software versions, you know, depending on how we have it set up. Say, you know, we have 10 computers and 8 of those computers are up to date. 10% aren't, we'll get an 80% compliance score. So we're gonna be able to look at things like that as far as keeping everything patched, keeping everything up to date, and making sure all those things are secured. We're in the process of rolling out multi-factor authentication, which will be the Windows Hello. That's what we're using for that as part of our M365. Essentially, that makes your computer a second authentication factor. So all you'll have to do is enter a PIN. And even if you do give out your username or password via phishing or something like that, or it's stolen from you, however that happens, they would also have to take your physical computer to be able to log into your account. So that computer will be your approval for any kind of logins. We have some email security enhancements in place as far as getting rid of different links from external sources that can be clicked on. We've essentially gotten rid of those. We're testing different endpoint detection and response services currently. We use ESET with everything, but we're trying to figure out if we can find something that works better and integrates more. Not that there's anything wrong with ESET, but with all the new tools we're looking at, we want to make sure we have maximum visibility and integration. We are, again, in discussions with CISA to develop custom tabletop exercises. I've gone through annual security and awareness training, which is very basic. It's based on the ITEC standards. There's 12 points we have to cover in that. And that is done for the CAs and the OAs and all of the IT staff, audio video staff, everything like that. We just have to schedule a time with all of you to go through that. That also covers our new acceptable use policy. I'm also working with other legislative divisions to kind of develop a unified hardened image. Essentially what that means is that, there was a question brought up earlier about, different software and applications. When we get one of these images, it's really going to lock things down. So you're going to have to put in requests to download things to the computer, different applications, things like that. And it's inconvenient, but it's secure. And that image will be customized based on each department for whatever applications they need. And then we'll deploy that out to all the laptops, the endpoints. And that will help keep us, again, as secure as possible, because there won't be a bunch of changes that can be made or things that could accidentally happen. And then we're also analyzing the possible utilization of additional email security services. We're essentially going to set up, right now, our email security service looks at things that are coming in on the inside. We're going to set up something on the outside as well and see how well it works. And then if we don't see anything on the inside, we may decide to use that service. But again, that's something that we're in the testing phase of on a few accounts, not rolling out, not going to affect anybody during session. We're not doing anything that's going to affect operations. So we're currently updating all of the legislative cybersecurity policies. We've got 3 approved, looked at by all the divisions and approved. That's our secure data center access control policy, acceptable use policy, and our change management policy. Ones that I've gotten totally revised and that are under review and revision by everyone else are patch management, ID and authentication. That has to do with our MFA, that has to do with how the system identifies the users and how user accounts are created. Access control, which deals with who's allowed to create accounts, how accounts are created, how accounts are deleted, things like that. A general security policy, our incident response policy, and as you can see, there's quite a few pending updates that are here. We're just working through them and working through all the other security issues as they arise. So we've got a pretty comprehensive picture of what we need to do, and we are moving forward as quickly as possible, but also staying as secure as possible and making sure we don't impact operations in any way, shape, or form as far as our infrastructure or security changes. It's become a lot more secure, since we've been working on it. As Alan said, he's been trying to get this position filled for over a year, we finally got somebody in it. So it's been really good. One of the things that we did was we cleaned up Active Directory accounts. They're a good way to get in, if old ones are sitting around, they can easily be compromised because nobody notices them because they just sit there. So we've gone through all divisions, cleaned all those up. Just, a small example of some of the things that we've been doing. And that's all I had. Does anybody have any questions or anything like that?
Does anyone have a question? Representative Penn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sorry, I'm coming over something. I apologize for being out of the office. I had to take another meeting, but I wanted to ask you a couple of quick questions. Alan, great job, good hire. Were you Netcom or Forcecom?
Forcecom.
Who'd you serve with?
Started off with 108th ADA Brigade down in El Paso, Texas. Then 2nd ID out of Korea, and then 1st Brigade, 5th Armored Division. They were actually part of the Army Evaluation Task Force. They tested, essentially contractors would bring in equipment and we would test it for different, pen test it, do different things with it to see how it would fit overall with the Army's goals. So.
Okay. Madam Chair, if you allow me, I wanted to ask you a couple quick questions. Thank you for your service. I appreciate that.
Thanks, sir.
Let's see. When we're talking about the NetOps picture across Kansas government, can you tell us, if you're prepared to, what are the hangups or the efforts that you're making to sync those types of operations right now? Is there any talk about that? Are there any hangups for it?
There definitely has been talk as far as specific hangups. That would be a question for Alan or one of the other CTOs. I'm not super involved in that process. The only comment I have in general is just communication and collaboration. It always works better with communication and collaboration, so.
I was going to ask you a question about were you guys geared more toward intrusion detection versus prevention, but your slides are very good and you're talking through all your points. Let me ask you one other quick question then. The team that you have, you made mention that you have about a team of 6. Do you have issues with recruiting more members for the team, getting those that are trained, proficient? What does that space look like? What would you like to see?
So, yeah, I mean, at the state government level, you know, if you go to any national state government conference, finding good security personnel or IT personnel overall is very difficult, and retaining them is very difficult. You know, you kind of have to have that sense of service. The pay is not as great as it is in the civilian sector. And you know, you're not always working on cutting edge, bleeding edge stuff if that's what you're into. So what we actually did was we contracted with a third-party company for that, because we realized with our personnel shortage, you know, we would need to hire those 6 full-time employees just to focus on that one specific area, and that just budgetarily, it just made more sense to contract with a company that would give us a dedicated security operations center, and they would handle all the hiring and things like that. So we pay them, but they can essentially afford to pay really good professionals more money than we could. And it just seemed like the best option for us with what we had available to work with.
Absolutely. And Madam Chair, one last question in the interest of time. You made mention about, you know, collaborating and hiring in. On your slides, you were talking about how you all have the collaborative space. Has that increased or given any equality to your responsive time or the success rate of responsiveness, mitigation? What do you see happening in that space since you've entered into that type of collaborative space?
Oh, definitely, yeah. You know, Sam and John from CISA have been great as far as helping us identify potential vulnerabilities, getting scans and everything like that. You know, we've been collaborating with Mr. Fisher and KLRD a lot on working on different IT projects. Mr. Shirley and Ms. Osterhaus over in LPA have been great. And yeah, it's just really helped as far as, you know, we see some things they can't see, they see some things that we can't see at this point in time. So we've, you know, there's been quite a few calls back and forth, messages saying, hey, have you seen this? Have you seen that? So it's brought a lot of things to light that, you know, a lot of people weren't looking at. And then, you know, just from the MSISAC, the Information Sharing and Analysis Center point of view, you know, we get those alerts, you know, as soon as they come out, so we can look at our products, our software, our hardware, and determine if we're vulnerable in that way, and then we can get that fixed immediately via patching or taking something out of circulation. So it's been great, yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam Chair. We fight tonight, and they can talk about us, can't talk without us.
Yes, sir.
All right, speaking different languages in this committee will not be tolerated. You're talking about us, and we know you are. We just don't know what you're saying. Bob, I want to thank you, as well as Alan. I have to tell you that Bob had to change his name in order to operate in this building because he is another Michael Murphy. And he couldn't get that on his email because someone else has already taken it as a member of our committee. So he has, is that your middle name?
Robert, yeah.
Yes.
So I went with Bob.
He's going by
Madam
his
Chair.
middle name, and so we need to thank him for the sacrifices he's making. How long did it take you to go from someone calling Bob to you finally realizing, oh, that's me?
Yeah, it still sometimes I say Bob, and I'll be like, I don't look around.
Look around and, who are you? Where are you going? Okay, are there any questions? Further questions? Representative Turner.
Thank you. You know, it seems that there are so many bodies. You went through several of them. Does it feel like you're being, are you clear in terms of how many people you have to keep? You talked about coordination and communication is key, but it just seems like there's so many things in this government world that have a finger in all the things that you're working on, and you're working on very important stuff, and I just don't know, kind of give me a view of what gets, what, you've got a lot of breadth of things you're trying to cover, and I just wondered, do you feel like you've got all the tools you need to do, or does the slowness of government get in the way?
You know, as far as what we need to do, I would not say that the slowness of government gets in the way, possibly with implementation and rollout. you know, things are a little bit slower than I think they would be in the private sector, but it's one of those things where it's an expectation, so you just kind of adapt. And as far as the organization of the different tools, or the different standards and tools, you know, we actually cut that down quite a bit because you've got COBIT and you've got ISO and a bunch of different things that we're eventually going to start looking at. Once we get this baseline established, I'm essentially just using these for a baseline, and then we'll start looking at what we can do to meet other standards as well. So for me, it really hasn't been an issue. You know, as far as my education and my time in the military kind of prepared me for putting all these disparate things together. I hope that answers your question, sir.
It does, and thank you. And you're doing good work, and I just want to say I'm very thankful that you also presented to the Joint IT Committee, and you're doing some good things, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative.
Is there any other question? Okay, thank you. The only questions I had, and you determine on who wants to answer that. I know that you said it's going to take a while to get to .gov for Kansas, the website for Kansas. How long will that take? Will it be very easy for you to do once we're not in session? Because, you know, how is that going to screw up our operations in the meantime?
Yeah, and this is kind of a comment in updating our IT systems in general. You know, we try to minimize any changes during legislative sessions so we don't, you know, break the session. So that's part of our change management policy also, that, you know, if we have to change something, it's going to be an emergency change that's really needed, and we're going to go through a risk assessment of whether we make that change or not. So during the interim, that's really our busy time of getting all the systems updated. Since we were looking at the new tools sort of from the summertime into the fall, I directed staff to make sure that we're not implementing things that might risk this legislative session, but to go ahead and work on the things that are lower risk and won't cause disruptions to the session. So that's been my measure and direction to the staff, is to make sure that we minimize any changes here. But, you know, right after this session is over, we've got to get rolling out all the rest of the stuff that we've identified so far.
Okay. Do you have any plans for training of the legislature as well as staff of the legislature in order that cybersecurity training that you talked about, that you ran through your office and some other of the offices downstairs?
Yeah.
And will we get to do that?
Bob has trained, like you said, the OAs and the CAs and the IT staff in the agencies. But yes, we do need to schedule time with the members, because we want to make sure they have that understanding, you know, about the phishing emails and such, so that they're not doing things to compromise their accounts. So we will get that scheduled.
Okay. How long does that take approximately? If you're doing it for, say, our committee, we have a special meeting and you just do it for our committee.
The training takes 30 to 45 minutes, and then there's a link to a check on learning to just kind of see what it is. That's not done during the training, that you can do in your free time, and then that helps me identify deficiencies in the training and areas for improvement.
Okay. So you can see whether or not we did the online training? We have to sign in?
So I don't have the online training ready yet. It's just in person, but I have the check on learning available via Teams and Microsoft Forms. So.
Okay. All right. That sounds good. All right. Next question. I know that you know who has what laptop, correct? Do you have that written down? Is everything else being counted and identified, numbered, so that the state knows exactly how much electronic equipment we have in the building?
Yeah, all of our hardware is identified. We know what all that is, from the laptops through the servers. One of the projects we're working on with the architecture is to go into even a deeper dive of that, and identifying all the pieces of software on every device, every server, so we know what version number it is. And then when we get notifications on vulnerabilities, those usually specify the version of the software that's vulnerable, so we can instantly look at our inventory and know what needs to be updated.
So you have an inventory of all the electronic equipment in the building? Is it, you know, because everywhere I've worked prior to being in the government, I've seen very difficult to remove tags that so you can say that's computer number 1, that's computer number 2. Do you have that set up?
Yeah,
or
we
are
have
you in the
service
process of-
tags on all the end user devices.
You do, okay.
Yes.
Oh. Representative Robinson.
Okay, thank you. So look, I know I'm certainly gonna need and appreciate the training. So I'm gonna see if it makes sense to ask, can we have it done sort of like in an intro level so that I'm actually able to comprehend some of the discussion that we had this morning so that it means something after I go out the door? You know what I mean? So that I
No,
can-
we completely
Thank you.
understand.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question? Yes.
He'd like it put in, yes, he'd like to have it addressed to him and on a level that he can understand it right now, since a lot of us, sorry, a few of us, I should say, a few of us are not as cognizant of how whether it's the acronyms or
Right.
any other things. So if
Yeah, we're trying to make sure that in our presentations to the committee that we don't, this industry is so full of acronyms and they throw them around all the time. I'm trying to get myself and staff to make sure we spell everything out, try to explain what it is. And so in that presentation that Bob had, we made sure we spelled a lot of that stuff out. And that also that he has that glossary that he can send to the committee too, that I think would probably help.
yeah, our committee assistant I heard a sigh of relief because I asked her to make the glossary, so we can just add to it. As well as we'll show it to everybody, give it to everybody, and then you can say, I want this on there as well. So we may add to it if you don't mind, Bob.
Yeah, anything you need explained further, just let us know. We can do that.
Representative Penn.
Madam Chair, excuse me, might it be advisable to use this committee for an hour as a test bed to do a rollout of the training and check on learning?
As a matter of fact, that was one of the things I was going to ask for.
I knew you were already all.
When they can do it. So we'll have a committee meeting where we get the training. So then we can also give other people that information on how good it was to do it and how important it is. So yes, I agree. All right, we're running out of time. Are there any other questions? I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank you, Bob, also for being here. Donnie, thanks for being here. You didn't get to say a word. They never let you stand up and speak. But thank you. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
It's like me? Let me? I don't want to. Yeah, he has not decided to do that. I apologize because we were starting late. I just jumped into the meeting. I neglected to ask if there were any bill introductions for today. There have not been. Also, Phyllis gave you the committee rules. I wanted to make sure everyone looked at that. We can either vote on them next week or we can vote on them now. They're very standard. What happened last year was that because there were so many odd committee rules all over, every committee was doing something a little different. The leadership gave us a template, basically, make sure you use this. So it shouldn't be a surprise to anyone, but I will let you vote on it next week so you have a chance to look at it. I have this feeling that it's not really top reading information for you guys since you've got a lot going on. But we need to vote on those as soon as possible so that we are all aware of what kind of guidelines we need to follow. Okay. What else did I forget? Did I forget anything else, Natalie? I finally got it together in an hour and a half. So thank you all for being here. I appreciate it. We'll have out next week's agenda. I'm supposed to have it today, or they were supposed to have it yesterday, but we weren't here. So we'll get the agendas out, and then if you have anything you want to add, please let me know, or please call Phyllis and ask her to put that on. All right? Thank you, everybody. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.